Well, it's filtering a lot right
Yeah.
now. Like there was
Trash.
the first day, I think I had to allow like 17 emails to come through that it blocked that I could have got.
Really, I didn't look at it.
It's
I just tried.
it's lowering now. Well, I probably get a lot more.
I'm trusting, I really am. It's not with you, but not yours.
They must have that thing black there.
So.
Like calling meeting to order and asking to stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you everyone for coming tonight. Just have one discussion item. Property tax and millage information. This is based upon the library becoming a district and us potentially lowering taxes by the 1.25 millage rate that the district library would be requesting. So, do you want to walk us through your pictographs here?
So I tried to keep it kind of simple. I didn't want to overload you guys with information, but certainly if you want anything else or have questions, let me know. But so just right at the beginning, I wanted to make sure that you guys knew our general fund, general and streets fund millage is 17.25. However, right now with Headley rollback, our rate is 14.0033. And the Headley rollback is it permanently reduces that rate. And then
That's not on our chart anywhere here, Danielle.
it's at the very top, it's just like the little two sentence
Yep.
before you go into the chart.
Okay.
So then I did include a library appropriation history. The reason I did this is I put on that far right column, the millage based on appropriation. So if we were to say of all of our mills to fund that, how many mills pays for their appropriation portion? So you can see like 2.18 mills and so on, 2.4 this current year, just so you could understand what they're currently receiving in mills. So that when you look at if potentially you were gonna reduce it, we still have a little bit of room there.
Okay.
And then the chart just kind of shows you visually.
Totally. I really don't have a whole lot of knowledge about this material. Why does it fluctuate from year to year? Can you help me out with it? I think I know, but can you?
That'd be based on proposed budgets and what
What they
council,
received.
you're right.
So
Yeah, so it's gonna be based on what they're receiving for budget. It's also gonna be based on what our taxable value is, because our taxable value fluctuates.
which fluctuates.
So that's why on the second page there, I have taxable value history.
And that's.
And I really wanted to include this more so that you guys understand that right now we have the highest taxable value we've had in the last 10 years. And I really wish I should have gone back a lot farther, but I don't want to overload you guys. But what you'll see is a similar trend to what we have right now, where it'll come up and then it'll roll back down and then it'll come up. And typically, I mean, it varies in that time frame. It could be 10, it could be 12 years, but kind of around, you'll see that a little bit. And the reason I thought that was important for you guys to share is because when you look at what one mill generates in revenue today, that will be very different in 2 years, or I say very, maybe not very different, but it will be different. So I didn't want you to base all of your decision on our high level, knowing we're gonna at some point hit that lower range. And then I did just the revenue impact by millage right below that. So this is based on what we collect today or what we're our taxable value is. So if you were to do a reduction, that gives you the dollar amount less revenue we would bring in. Just so you can then be like, okay, this is X amount from our budget. And I just did it in quarter increments up to the 1.25 because that's what they're requesting. We could calculate that out more if you need me to. And then I included capital, which I know you guys have. I included this only for the general and streets funds, just because I do want you guys to see what our needs going into the future look like. And I guess what I think this picture shows you is that we could reduce the millage potentially and still be in the positive without giving them funding, because they'll have their own. So we're still, like, right now they're at 2.25 or 2.4 mils this year. So if we dropped it, like, we're still netting a little bit better to go towards capital. But is it enough to make an impact on all of our needs? And that's where you guys need to give direction. And ultimately, whatever you guys do, we're gonna make it work, but that's why I included those components. Again, if you have questions or specific details, the capital improvement plan I did share with you guys in a weekly summary. I think it was 2 weeks ago, if I remember correctly. Which breaks down the very specific requests for the next 6 years. I don't wanna overload you guys again, but if you have questions about that, but I will tell you, our employees do a really good job of requesting what they need. There's not a lot of things in there that are like, oh, this would just be so nice to have. It's things that they know are gonna be coming up. But again, questions, more information, whatever you got, throw it at me.
The revenue impact by millage reduction, was that based on 23 or 24 numbers?
That is based on 24 numbers. Yes.
So our taxable value went up, how much did we lose on the millage then? About 0.43? 0.43?
This year,
It's gonna fluctuate, it depends on how the housing market does.
Right.
Right now, we do so well, and next year, there might be crashes.
But our millage rate for next year was lowered,
yes.
how much?
How much, it is 14.0274,
14.0274.
and now it's 14.0133. So, we're reducing about $5,000.
It's not much.
Tax advantage in the land market.
But
Right, this year it's not much. Overall, it's started to add up because we're at
But the
we're down
taxable-
3.5 mils almost.
if the taxable value drops 2, 3, 4 years, then we're talking a bigger number.
Right,
That we're
because it's
missing out on.
correct. Because that it's gonna correlate, we have a higher taxable value, a lower drop, so that gap is smaller. But that, again, that's why I wanted you guys to see some of that history, that it does change a little bit.
Just gonna use a calculator.
Danielle, can you help me with the capital projects projections? In the 2024 year, it says general is 1.995 million. And in 25.6, it drops to 899. What is it? Without digging all the way into the capital improvement plan going forward that you sent out a couple weeks ago, what is that significant drop?
Okay, so we've been doing, this will be our 3rd year doing the capital improvement plan as it is now. I think 3rd year. So what we do now is we have all of our projects and I build that into the requested budget for council. And if you, I don't know if you recall last year, if you were to look at the column for requested budget, you would see that we were significantly, we would be over budget in a deficit, not possible. But I show that so that it's an accurate picture. And then we put in all of our keep the lights operating on, and then you guys, and we go kind of skim through that, but you guys really focus on the capital projects and say, what's the most important? And you fund a portion of those. Anything not funded then gets taken and moved to the next fiscal year as a request plus whatever requests were already in that year. So what you see is kind of the more projects we don't fund, it builds it up in the future. So we have a large request this year that we know we can't fund all that. So next year, right now, because I don't know what portion won't be funded, it looks like 899, but then I'll take whatever 600,000 to wrap into that 899, and it'll become the new number. So you'll see,
So that number is likely to go up then.
it absolutely, yes, there's, again,
As things roll forward.
right.
Gotcha. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
but the 26, 27, 28, 29, look the way that they do.
Yeah, and 2930, I don't remember what it is, but there's something in there that's fairly large. I can look actually if you guys want me to. But that, yeah, so you'll see, I mean, again, the more we delay, the other fat part of that too, that I should bring up. So we also factor in when we carry those forward, we add what I look at whatever inflation is projected to be, and we try to account for that. So if I'm requesting, and I'm just gonna use round numbers, but $10,000 this year, and we know that inflation is going to be 3 to 4%, then we're gonna bump that request up next year by 4% to make sure that we're covering for that, and I don't request 10,000, and now it's really a $13,000 project. So it's gonna increase a little bit due to that as well. But let me pull up, I can tell you about that outline here too. Sorry, it's a lot of pages, bear with me here. So that, okay, so 29, 30 years, over the one, because there's an $850,000 request to create a multi-use facility at the old Gail Giles Pool House and bathrooms. And that was based on an engineer's estimate from when we did that Spark grant. And hopefully we'd be able to leverage some grant funds or something, but that's why you see that jump there.
Barry, did you have your calculators, or did you wanna?
No, I was just seeing, like,
Just
if we,
everything.
just what the difference is, like, compared from this year to 2022, if we, lost some taxable value. But we're gonna obviously stay at 14.033 from here until the next time they roll that back, so it's only a couple grand, I think.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it in terms of what's currently happening, we're allocating at least 2.2 all the way up to 2.9 mils over the last 10 years to the library. So if the current funding structure was to stay in place, you could, reasonably assume that it's gonna take 2+ mils going forward. Now that they're a district and looking for, the vote is coming, they're gonna get that funding elsewhere. So it's, even though, yes, it would take away from our overall budget, it would actually improve our budget by at least 1.15 plus going forward. So it actually, I know it sounds, it's sort of counterintuitive to give up money, but we're actually gaining 1.15 mils to spend. If you look at like the last 4 budget cycles that many of us have been through, we'd be gaining $115,000 to $120,000.
Right, and that's what I was saying,
Yeah.
like what this, I think it shows you is that
Yeah.
even if we reduce it. Now, with that being said, I will tell you right now, I'm not ever going to advocate for that
Right.
because of all of our needs. I shouldn't say ever. I fully understand why we would consider and why we would have that discussion. I agree with your rationale. The manager side of me though is like, we have so many capital projects that we need to make progress on. I mean, like streets, for example, if we want, and we do pretty good about taking care of our streets, but that's because we've continued to put funding towards it every year. You guys were previously before me funding streets at 320,000, 375 a year. Like this last year was 200,000, the year before was 120, so we increased it. But now that's less funding for streets to continue to maintain them to the level that we currently do. And eventually, that's going to catch up to us if we continue down that path. And that's just one example. So that's why, as a manager, I'm like, if we were in a better position with all of our projects, I'd probably be more likely to say, yeah, this makes sense. But again, I get it. I do think for our residents, what you're saying makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know.
So if we reduced it by 1.25 mils. And we gave that back to the people. What happens down the road if we need that 1.25 mils back? It's gotta go to a vote?
So we did look into this and Brandon got information that says that you do not. I got information that says that you do. I talked to Dave about this again because I think Dave and I thought that Dave told me is that if you guys were to lower the millage and then and you make a motion to do that, and then within the same year, you go back or you increase it up to the maximum, which is the 4.03, that you're good. If you go outside of that same year, then you would have to go back to the voters. Brandon did get information, and he did share that with me from, I should have had this pull up ahead of time, I apologize. And who was it, Brandon?
His name's Brad, yeah.
But what's he do?
He is a financial, he counts that township, but he is also on the board of the training that I attended. So, and he gave a presentation similar to this situation. So I asked him if council included no revenues, 1.25 mils. And then 5 years down, I'm not saying 5 years down, but down the road, you guys needed that money back because we had an emergency. He said, yes, we can because we are under the 17th allocation from the treasury. And he gave me an example, and he said the voters approved 1 mil worth something in their township for the police department. They get lowered it to 0.6, then it increased it to 0.65 mils because it generated enough for them to pay the county. Because they're the same boat we are. The taxpayer values are skyrocketing, bringing their budget enough money based on the mill.
Yeah, so I don't know entirely I don't know who is correct or not there, I'm not sure,
Can we find out?
yeah,
Like a rock solid from somebody at the state or something?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's just,
But this is how he.
because this is the thing, there's different types of mills, because that's, okay, so our pool, we have the millage up to 2. We have to generate enough revenue to pay for that bond. So right now, we're not collecting 2 mills because our taxable value is higher. So and that's where I think there's confusion if we are looking at our general millage, not a special.
This is our operating.
Correct,
Budget.
and that's where I think there's maybe some differences, and I don't know, we do need to talk to somebody at the state, we talk to, I wanna make sure it's the right answer, and I also think they're not gonna give it to us in writing. Just, that's usually how it goes. But will make some follow-up calls to that, cause we did want to have that answer before, but I'm not overly confident in either right now. Sorry.
Look for other input, other topics.
Jerry had a good point. For me, it's the future. I guess I'm looking at it three ways. Three scenarios. The proposed option, which really I'm not a fan of. Because again, we're sitting here representing the village residents. And we're gonna tack on potentially 1.25 across the board. What this should be is a win for the village and a win. It should be a win for the village and a win for the library. And the users of the library are generally the school district. So rather than everybody across the board do a 1.25 increase, and then we potentially set ourselves up for an issue in the future of rolling back that 1.25. I would much rather see either the village does a 0% increase. Okay, say the library wants to accomplish, they want 400,000 to operate, right? We give them we give them 250,000 this year to operate on average. Say that's what you are wanting to increase your budget to, correct, is around $400,000 operating. So again, let's say the 40 surrounding townships that we're considering, Deerfield, just for easy numbers, Deerfield, Riga, Palmyra, and Ogden. Okay, so they're in our school district, they use it. Whether, voters say, okay, the village residents are willing to put in an increased money, an increased percent, maybe half mil, et cetera. In the other townships, maybe throw in 0.75 mils, and that comes back and that gets us to that 400,000 operating. But again, it's falling on the backs of the village residents because we're not gaining anything out of it. By doing absolutely nothing, the village residents get the same services. And now you're gonna charge them another $100, potentially on the property taxes, for doing the same thing that we're doing right now. So again, it should be a win-win across the board. It should help our residents not have to fully fund a library that is used by a school district or by other municipalities surrounding townships. They should pay back into it. So whether or not our voters decide to say, okay, we'll pay more of a fraction willing to do it, and the surrounding townships pay more towards that, that would make sense to me, because it's not fair to the village residents to say, okay, if we didn't do any rollback, another 1.25 mils, that's gonna get absorbed by this council because we're gonna spend it elsewhere. There's no benefit that us as taxpayers are gonna see in that, right? We could say, oh, we're gonna accomplish more, we're gonna do more, we're gonna get this project done. But in our wallets, we don't see that, and much like many of the village residents that aren't gonna see that, experience that as well, they won't understand that. So it's just gonna leave a bad taste.
But based upon conversations with Dr. The 1.25 isn't across the board. They don't have any say in that, right?
Right, and that's why I don't like the verbiage, I don't like the proposal itself, and I'm obviously an advocate for the library, I wanna see the library succeed, and I wanna see it fairly represented and paid for across the board. Right, it should always fall back on the residents of the village to support a library that other municipalities use, that's just not fair.
I mean, that's why the 1.25 reduction is on the table.
Correct, but does that set us up for, is that the best way to go about it, or does that set us up for failure in the future of?
Yes,
Do we have to,
it sets us up
Do
for
we-
failure in the future.
the way that I've always thought, come budget session, it specifically read, and I can't remember for the life of me, and embarrassingly enough, it's. We would set our tax rates. And we knew what the maximum was, it's either 15 or 20, right? Because we would normally say like 14 and 3/4, something like that, out of the 15 that we would be able to assess.
So you'll have truth in taxation coming up on the June 10th meeting. And that's where you decide, because we have to set our rates before we do our budget. So our elected Cause we're over the allowed general village law. Base millage rate that you can get, because our voters approved.
The additional bonds for
Correct.
that, right, for the other projects, yes.
Yeah, and then for like, just, for streets and what other, whatever.
But are we maxed out? We're not maxed out without those projects, correct? I mean, I guess that would be the
We're
question.
maxed at our maximum allowed millage and we're lower than the 17.5 because of Headley. But we are collecting the maximum that we're allowed without going to the voters for another amount.
And that,
And,
no,
and I
that's-
do, no, I'm sorry, I guess I do wanna clarify, there are some other ways to bring in millages without going to the voters, but it would increase what we're already getting from them. That's something that we have had conversations in the office, I don't wanna put that back on our residents, so we've not done that. But we are collecting the maximum.
Cause say we're spending 250,000 right now on the operations of the library, that's employees, that's programs. Obviously, they're funded above that, but it's the building maintenance, it's all that stuff. So we could still have that, say we allocated 200 towards the library, we still own the building, et cetera, et cetera. We're still helping with the employee costs and the programming. But all these other entities are paying back and they're making up the other 200,000, so 50 grand per township. And then that gives us 50,000 extra to move to other projects, and that is not falling on the backs of the village residents. That is the responsible way to say, okay, we're still gonna have the library, we're gonna try to improve the library. But you other municipalities need to pay your fair share so that we can accomplish what we need to do as well, because then we could reallocate. I could much rather easily talk to a resident and say, you're getting the same service, but we're reallocating 50 grand towards other projects, and the other municipalities are chipping in and paying their fair share.
I'm not following you there, because if you take a look at this current budget here at 2.4 mils, it would actually free up 1.15 mils for this council to budget elsewhere.
I get I think what he's saying though is that it does for the village, but it doesn't for the residents. So now their services aren't changing at all,
Well, according
and
to,
they're gonna pay 1.25 more.
according to the library board, they're increasing services because they'll have more funds, more revenue.
I agree, but there's a lot of residents that don't feel that way, and we need to represent the residents, and a lot of people are saying $100 more in property taxes for the same library is unacceptable, and there's a better funding mechanism where the other municipalities pay their fair share and pay for that library to make.
How do you do that?
It's go back to the drawing board and say, Riga, Palmer, Deerfield, Ogden, whatever you need to pay, and if your students and your residents are going to utilize our library, then you're gonna pay your fair share for it. So either it's by a voted a bond or something like that they pay back to us, or in fees, say, you know what? Village residents pay $25 or whatever for a library card or whatever, maybe they pay $100 a year. And we're offsetting those costs. Because we're still paying for the building, we're still paying for the maintenance, we're still paying for a lot of the.
We are, but we can also examine selling the building, which would be great. We will no longer have any administrative work. So there is hidden savings there.
But this year there will be.
Maintenance of the building, I think that's all being discussed and worked out. Once it goes to a district, they're responsible for all that.
That's
That's
why
why
the process presented, we're gonna pay $100 more property taxes for the same library, the village residents. With a little bit better library, but it's still $100 more out of our pocket.
well,
We should
not
offset.
if we offer the reduction of the 1.25 mils, it's a 1-to-1.
Right, but then if we do need that millage again down the future, if infrastructure's ugly, a big project, something like that, where we need to raise that, does that limit us? That is much like Jerry alluded to, that is my question. Can we re-raise those rates up to the max? Again,
Well, let's just going
or
back
does
to,
it have to go to the voters?
just going back to this year's budget. we allocated 2.4 to the library.
Yes.
2.4, so you're actually getting win back 1.15 mils.
But but again, this council's not, the taxpayers aren't gonna see anything from that. We're gonna reallocate those funds. This council-
Taxpayers are.
This board is gonna reallocate those funds.
That's right, the taxpayers are gonna stay the same.
Right.
They're not gonna see an increase or decrease in taxes.
If we do the rollback, yes.
If we do the
But
reduction.
if we leave it as the same, they're gonna pay $100 more.
Correct. But if we leave it the same, we'll have 2.4 mils to spend elsewhere next year. If we do the reduction, we'll have 1.15 mils to spend next year.
I don't believe that, because we're still paying for. That only gets them the 400, we're still paying for the operation that we're paying for now, that gets them more money to operate.
No, that, we cease to fund them at that point.
There's $0.
$0 will be coming from the village. It'll all be collected and spent. They'll have completely separate bank accounts operating,
We have to hire an accountant, and, we have to,
payroll, everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of the increase, the idea of the increased budget.
And you're,
And the assumption that we would probably buy a building, I think. and
Yeah.
Have to maintain
Insurance, everything
utilities, all
falls,
the, yeah.
utilities,
We
all
would have
goes to them.
zero
We would have,
obligation.
yeah,
Well, it'd be 100% funded by the millage, which would be 1.25 across the district, the school
Right.
district.
Right.
Which includes the village.
So you're saying that increase, the 1.25, gets you 400,000, and then you don't need the 2.4 from us.
correct.
We don't, yeah, we wouldn't,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's-
so the idea kind of with the reduction would be. It's the village residents would pay the same, not more than they, since they have been paying
Yeah.
all of it.
and you'd be handling
And
your.
you would have an increase like of the 1 point whatever mil.
1.
I totally understand, that's.
Yeah, I see
a
what you're
big
saying
risk
now,
on
yeah,
your-
it's just 1.2 to
Right.
allocate elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah, the only money we could collect would be from the village.
Yeah, so the.
So we wouldn't be appropriated anymore, there's
But
no more.
but then there has to be
appropriation.
the agreement to where we wash our hands from that, because again, we're gonna pay 100,000 for roof this year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
On top of everything else that
We,
cost of. that
we are
costs us to
gonna,
maintain it.
and the way we discussed the first 6 months of funding, we are front loading the budget. And basically, gifting them enough to succeed going forward, because then they start collecting their millage and
The deal breaking.
right, they're off to the races on their
Well,
own.
we have to get it to pass. So
Well,
we're
yeah,
hoping,
but no,
I
that's-
understand you're not responsible to.
No, but that's how it was structured.
Yes,
Was to do the two, the first quarter and second quarter payments.
yeah,
Excuse me, front load,
Right.
sort of that budget year, expecting it to pass. So,
So can I ask you a question? To the public, which we didn't see, is the millage, gonna be permanent, or is it gonna be like a 10-year?
It's a
millage?
10-year millage.
It's a 10-year millage. Okay.
When is this being presented to the public? The millage
The August election.
in August. We needed to make a decision before that.
yes. Yeah, so that would give voters all the information needed.
I mean, this council as far as what we're going to do.
Yeah, that would give voters the information needed.
Whether we do the rollback or not.
Yeah, I mean, so as a village resident and as a taxpayer, I don't wanna see my taxes increase, right, but.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
So to me, if the library. Can get this passed. It relieves. It relieves us from not budgeting any money to them. Other than what was agreed upon earlier this year, for that next budget cycle, but then. That's it, it's a clean break.
Karen, do you know if the majority of your customers there are within the village limits?
They are, we have a breakdown,
So it's kind of,
Yeah,
I mean-
I've seen that in most of the.
Yeah. I mean, we do have quite a few users in all the townships, but, I don't have like the
That's okay.
percentage, the pie chart percentage.
I'm just thinking if we're gonna do this, then that might obviously gonna be part of the selling point for you guys.
Well, and the majority of the population lives in the village, so if nothing changes for them, they're gonna wanna keep their library, you know, we've already, we have support. Either way, but it would definitely help people on the fence, you know.
Right,
If I may, I also just, I apologize for being late, I just, it's my early. I wanna add, I heard some discussion on YouTube earlier about, the village residents are paying more but not going to get anything different. But I want to be clear that the only way that we can actually maintain the current level of service is by getting a millage. If we do not get this millage, we cannot maintain the current level of service. So while residents may not be getting more, they may be getting, we believe that we can offer more if we're able to get this millage. But if we don't get this millage, we cannot sustain our current level because we're draining our savings. So the village residents will actually be losing services because we can't sustain that. And I just wanted that to be clear.
Yeah, yeah, that was a hot topic when we said last year's budget, so we know. But thank you for coming, and hopefully if we can all this, we can good with. So, we're.
for taxation, or how much? Like if we drop that 1.25, if we can never get it back without going to a vote.
I don't see why we wouldn't be able to, because again, the state legislation, the law has set a cap for us to what we can increase it to. I don't think it has to, I think anything above and beyond has to. go to
But we are
voters.
already above that. So this is where. Okay, so this is how Dave and I looked at it, because we did look at this when it first was brought up. So General Village Law Act allows us to collect 14.5 mils. We are up to 17.5, so the additional above the 14.5 was voter approved. And I know we're at the 14 point, so don't factor in Headley right now. So if we didn't have Headley, we would collect 17.5. We would reduce that, it would now become 15.25. And we're still above the 14.5 that's allowed under general village law. So in order to,
So you're
or
looking at.
12.5,
yeah, you're
I'm
looking
sorry,
at it
I'm
whether
saying
it's
14.
Because they added on those special
Correct.
assessments.
So
That's
our-
included in the.
Right, because we're already above what is allowed without going to the voters, that we think if you lower it, you would have to go back to increase it. And we really need to clarify that.
Yeah, because the voters voted on those as specific assessments
Right.
above and beyond. If that's how the law works, that's totally ridiculous.
Those would be the pool.
But this
It's
is,
the pool and the bridge.
but
yeah.
this is what, okay, so think about it this way. If, let's say, maybe in 3 years, you guys look at increasing it. It probably makes sense that we're allowed to do that because it's only been 3 years since we lowered it. Now, let's say that it's 20 years later, are you still allowed to increase it? Because now it's been 20 years since we've assessed that. And I think that's where it gets like, at what time frame? And we don't know that today, we have no idea, maybe we never do, I don't know.
Yeah, but let's be honest, 20-year life cycle is not, this board is not planning 20 years now. And shouldn't be, 5 to 7 years max.
I understand that, but I wanna put into perspective
Okay.
why I think that they do it
Well,
that
so
way.
let's just think 5 to 7 years, can we bring it back in that life cycle? Cause that's realistic, sort of 2 terms, 1.5 terms, like that's, capital projects, that's sort of what we're projecting. I don't think we've not extended any capital project past 5 years, right?
No, but we need to find out, it needs to be noted
Yes.
somewhere, because
Yes.
otherwise we'll wind up with the same situation that. The whatever it was, 0.2 mils or whatever that was going to the library that nobody could find.
Right.
Yeah,
it just seems to me that, and maybe I'm reading this wrong. It seems like we're going to, if we were having our discussion here, go down to 1.25. And then if we can, we're gonna go up. It seems like it's a break for a year and it's a breaks in order to get the library in, and then we change it to go back higher. And in a year's time, things that we purchase are gonna go up higher. To me, it doesn't, it's not making sense. What am I missing here? Because if we go ahead and we go, if they need the 1.25 or the
1.25.
1.25, we even it out, so it's break even, if you will, for a year. And then we're talking that next year, do we need to take a vote or not a vote for it to increase it again? We're giving a break for a year in order to get the library to go through. And
Well,
that doesn't seem.
Where's the
I don't know.
year coming from?
I just am using a year because it sounds like we're talking about in a year where we could increase it. That I think that's how I'm taking our conversation to be. So that we're gonna go ahead and do it for a year and then come back and it's like we're going whoop, 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 back and forth. And we know that the costs are not gonna get any cheaper for the items that we have and we need for our village. I don't see that happening.
Well, it's not just a year though, because again, much like they said, the library wouldn't come back to us on application. So we would still have, yes, things are costing more or costing more, but we would potentially have 1.2 more, say $100 to $125,000 more to spend per year
Yes.
from here on out on everything else.
I had thought at one time, this is a while ago with the board, is that the thought was that if the library went to the district level, had that opportunity, then we would have, for lack of better words, a significant amount of money to finally put towards these projects that have been put on the back burner for years. That was my impression.
So, yeah, no, that's not gonna, again,
Okay.
it's literally a staff member, or, you know,
Well,
or we're saving 10 years for.
to me, when I say significant, to me, 240,000 is significant. So to me, that is a lot of these, piddly things, 13,000, 21,000, this and this, and these are
Right.
projects that.
It's not the solution that we're looking for, obviously.
Oh,
in
no.
any way.
that-
And
No.
Headley and Proposal A, as good as they sounded at the time, haven't helped.
No, I won't disagree with you, but I'm just saying, I'm not sure the reduction is gonna help our village in the long run. I understand the rationale.
It'll help the bond pass for sure, though.
It'll help the bond pass. I understand that, but it sort of kind of sounded a little game.
Well, I was not
I don't know.
thinking about bringing taxes back. I thought this
Yeah.
is a sort of a permanent. And if there's a need in the future for additional taxes, it would not be because
Yeah, it's
we
not a big
did
swing.
this for the
Yeah, it'd be
library.
like if we got in a pinch 5-10 years down the
Yeah.
road and
Well,
This, so the best.
you
the
all
best
do
case-
understand we have a big ass election going on here in November. I mean, it's gonna be some serious, I mean, I don't know what, I don't wanna get into the whole political thing, but it's not gonna be good.
Right.
In my opinion, and I think we're gonna shoot ourselves in the foot, that I really believe that from a village standpoint.
Well, I don't know how bringing up $115,000 to $120,000 is shooting ourselves in the foot.
Because I'm looking at it in the long term, if we do that for year after year after year, I think that's just my,
I mean, 10 years from now, if you took all that money, you'd have $1.25 million to spend. Like, so I don't know, I just don't
I hear
really,
you,
I
I hear
really
you.
don't see it, so think about, you wanna talk about wins. We have said for the last 3 years, we cannot afford to continue allocating the money needed,
The full amount.
the full amount.
I agree.
And so that's a win. The library stays open, all the village residents that take part in the programming and use it, win. All the people in the district continue to use it, that's a win. The village frees up 1.15 mils, and that floats. If you look at 2019, 2020, that would be what is that?
I don't know, give me some numbers.
7 mils. So you're freeing up money. You're freeing up money that has been continually budgeted to the library.
I understand, I understand that part of it. I was just under the impression that any monies that did not go to the library would go towards the items for capital improvement for the village. To the big, I mean,
It will, but yeah, it's just a slow process at $100,000 at a time, ugly as it is, that's the answer right now. You're right, it's not pretty, and which goes back to what do the residents want? Again, we can't sit up here and placate them because, you know,
no, but
there's a very silent majority that are saying they want services cut, or they want taxes reduced, or they think we're overspending, or they're mad that, you know, the water costs this much. We have to come to a solution on what do we do versus what do we not do as operations of the village.
okay,
Yes, they probably want more cuts again, but
well, we.
we're gonna be the bad guy no matter what, you know,
I won't
if we
disagree.
reduce services, if we,
I know,
you know,
it's, you make it.
if we reallocate that money, and that's my problem with, I wanna be crystal clear on the 1.25. Yes, if we roll that back, it does help us in the long run, but again, if that money is needed down the line, does that cause a problem for increasing up to the max that a village can?
Well, let's just say we continue as is, right? We continue funding the library and then we need money. What do we do? I think it's the same operating mechanism to increase taxes at that point. 5 years from now, who knows what something catastrophic happens that we have to pay for. What's the funding mechanism then? Whether or not you reduce it today really has no impact on that going forward. So if you continue operating as is, you're gonna continue allocating at least 2.2 to 3.0 mils to the library. If you do this reduction of 1.25, you are now winning $100,000+ a year that can go towards your operating budget.
Right. If this happens and we do the rollback, we can re-roof the Rotary Pavilion and bulldoze the old pool in 2 years.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
literally
exactly
what
it.
the things that we haven't been able to do, that allows us to do that.
That's right. I mean, you can quickly start to take care of small things,
Right.
larger things, a couple of years, that money will build. And I think it's a win-win, I really do. I appreciate it being brought to our attention and having this discussion, I think this is great for both the library and the village. Residents continue to get up to the library facility and by the sounds of it, improved programming, right? A larger operating budget. Well, plus you are gonna be taking on maintenance costs and operating costs and whatnot, so, but employees, that's right.
Daniel, do we have something, well, it doesn't, never mind, it doesn't really matter. Not right now. I was gonna say that, you know, how we have our list of high, medium, low, I'm looking at the one capital improvement for 24-25, but it doesn't have any prioritized high, medium, low. And the other one has it, has each picture, but it's high, low, it doesn't have strictly from high to low.
You're saying the specific projects within the capital improvement?
Yeah.
We don't do that until the fiscal year that it's requested, and just because it tends to fluctuate a little bit, so it's hard to keep that in priority order out into the future. So when you guys get the budget for the 24-25 year, I will have priority levels assigned to each thing.
Bill, any input, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's fine. I kind of agree with Gwen, but I thought that any money that we did not allocate to the library was gonna be stay in our budget and we could redirect towards other bigger projects. I also think that it would be a win-win to reduce the rollback 1.25 from taxes. It's just gonna take longer, I think, to, like Mike said, a couple of years down the road to do those big things that we've left undone for, you know, the last few years.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Are you guys saying we shouldn't do the rollback? Is that what you're saying? I mean, I guess that's,
That was when I came in here tonight, that was my initial, thing.
not.
I should not.
okay.
So listening to the discussion here tonight. Then I'm more in favor of it, yes.
Okay. I see what you're saying is, yes, we could accomplish more if we didn't do the roll. Is that your concern? Same with you, Glenn, because I get it, it's double-edged sword.
Another part of that is that we can still, I thought we could do a we could still do the rollback, well, maybe not now, maybe in a year or two. We could still give them the rollback, but at a later date. And I'm kind of curious, that was another thing, are we jumping the gun? By doing it now, by rolling back now?
Or we pay, the village residents pay half the mill and the other municipalities pay 1.25. It's what you're like, instead of the full rollback, maybe we.
I was wondering about
But
maybe-
that's still
I was still
$25,
wondering-
$50 increase in property tax.
I was thinking, does it have to be the 1.25? The other thing is this, though, and that's why we have discussion, because this is how we learn.
Yep.
The point is this too, is if there is the rollback. Let me see if I can explain this correctly. If things stay currently like they are, then these projects that we've had out there are gonna take longer. But if we go ahead and the library becomes self-sustaining, then those monies will have, so it will take us half the time we thought they were gonna take in the beginning. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yep,
You follow me there?
there's a compounding effect.
Is that what you would call that? Okay, so if we are like, okay, this project's gonna be down there, we're gonna have the extra. We have the additional funds, we'll be able to get the projects done sooner, because we would have. It's not costing the same amount that the library is costing us now. So some of those projects would be getting done sooner, so that would help cost wise, but I still have the assumption that all the money was gonna go at one time to get all these things done. In a swoop.
Unfortunately.
That's what I was
And
thinking.
I guess what you're thinking is if we're allocating $240,000 now, why are we not getting $240,000?
Yes,
Right? I mean,
yes,
wouldn't that be a valid
Yeah, that would be if we,
question?
that would be if
that's what I'm thinking.
if everybody had the 1.25 increase, then we would get the $240,000. But if we say to village residents, we're not gonna have you increase or have your taxes increase.
Right.
Then the 240 gets reduced.
So that's where that's where
Yeah.
that's where I call big money. That's what I'm talking, it's not 100,000, I'm talking this whole
Yeah,
248,000.
that 2.4 becomes
Yeah.
1.15 mils.
Yes, and that's where I was thinking if there was no change.
Right.
That this amount here would knock out some of those.
I mean, no change is the best thing for this board.
But then you're gonna be paying more in property tax.
That's right.
I understand that,
Right.
I understand.
And that's what I was trying to say at
That's
the
the
beginning.
dilemma.
Yeah.
I
Is
don't
that
know.
from a
I know.
village aspect, no change is the best financially. But we're still making forward progress if you guys chose to reduce the 1.25.
Yes.
And that's what I was trying to show you with those charts, so, and James said this earlier, we're already funding them above and over that. So we still have that amount of money, and we are making progress on things now. It'll be at a slower rate, but we can still make progress,
Well, it'd
but
be
that's
actually
where,
at a faster rate
With
Because
that
we're gonna-
200,000
with the,
plus.
well, faster than today, but
Faster,
slower than
yes.
if we
Still
did
fuzzy
it.
though, really messy, because again, if we
yes,
increase the 1.25, but we don't, and we roll it back, why are we not 240 ahead? Because we're literally funding it with 240 right now.
I think we're
Well, we're funding it with 2.4 mils. So now
Well,
we'll
240,000, yeah, 240,000 essentially.
right, so now just do 2.4 minus 1.25. Right, because we're gonna say we're gonna collect 1.25 less overall.
I get what, so
No,
they can't do it under a district library though, if they were going to do that form, it couldn't be under, because a district library, and you guys can probably explain this better too, but they have to, it applies to the entire district, so they cannot set different amounts. So to do what you're saying, Mike, then the library would have to go and do like a services agreement with Riga Township and say, for us to provide services to your residents, you have to pay us X amount of money. But they cannot force them to do that. So then if the township, Riga, and I'm just using Riga as an example, says, well, we don't want an agreement, our residents just won't use your library, then they're in the same boat where we're fully funding them. And now Riga's just not being served by them, where the district makes it even for everybody with that rate. So that's what, like, I think what you're saying is that they should go get fees from them and then ours stays the same.
We did
For
talk to
residents.
the, yeah, and we did talk to
That
the
get the challenge,
council,
that
they,
time is obviously.
they just said, we have to put it to a vote. So our attorney came back and said,
No, but I was still saying, if nothing changes, if it breaks even for us, we should be 240 ahead. Because we're not allocating anything currently to the library. should
We
have-
would be.
Yeah.
If you guys don't reduce the millage, that we will be ahead that much.
Okay.
That's what I was saying, so if we keep things just as they are, the library has their issue, it passes, they're there, then all this money stays tested, and that's why we say we get this stuff done, and that's where Danielle's going to the.
But that's
to the village.
100,000.
But it's
Yes.
$100 more. So it's a property tax increase by $100.
Right.
And that's where your comments were, well, what are they getting for their extra $100?
I get a better library system, but not everybody
Well, a better,
utilizes
the
that.
thing is this, a better library system, but also. I know this is not popular, and I'm not saying I totally get it, I don't wanna pay $100 extra. No, I don't, but I also know. The stuff that needs to get done isn't gonna get cheaper 5 years down the road. It's not, it simply is, we've seen this, we've knocked our heads so many times where we've said, oh my God, we should have done this then, we should have done this then, now this is increased by this many hundred thousands, it just doesn't stop. But I understand the pain. There's only so many people in the village that can pay what we need. So it's a damned if you do and a damned if you don't.
Well,
But I do think the housing market is has the potential to be rocked. I mean, that's just my little one world,
You're right.
and I think that,
We're setting up funds right.
so I think that this could be,
But we've played it conservative for 3 years now, saying that this is gonna happen, and I don't wanna roll the dice on it, but
No.
again, we've done okay, we've done all right, and again, we played it conservative because we thought it was gonna pop 2 years ago, thought it was gonna pop last year. And we've come out ahead, right?
I
Yep.
will disagree, and that comes from Danielle and your team, everybody being as responsible as they are.
I get it, but we also we wanna be accurate, more, a little bit more realistic, and that was my point.
Well, we
a
tried to
few weeks
spend
ago.
money last week and, or last meeting, and got tabled.
and one thing I alluded to is the compound effect, so we have some projects that we are funding over the next 4 to 5 years, right? So what happens is, if you can take this money, you can get those projects done quicker. And that money gets reallocated later on, so that 4 or 5 year project now becomes a 2 or 3 year project. And in years 4
I
and
agree.
5, you're not only freeing up this money, you're freeing up that money as well, so it's a compound.
Right.
So,
Because we
But
were
the solution to
already,
that is not $100 more per village resident, we
Right.
cannot do that.
I agree, I agree. But I think this makes a lot of sense to me. And I know everyone's talking about the housing bubble, but I don't see it. Labor market's good, Dow's up, stock market's up, inflation's coming down, soft landing is here. Housing market's still good. If you talk to real estate people, professionals, they say that COVID is still working its way through because of the construction shutdown and everything. It's gonna take another 6 or 7 years. Really, I couldn't believe it. I was shocked to hear that. You look at all these economic factors, and it sort of does make sense. That's just James.
But if our services were cheaper and our taxes were cheaper, we could potentially have more, again, there's no real estate available here, as soon as it goes on the market, it's picked up. So again,
And
in
everyone.
order to attract new businesses, new people, new residents, new homes,
Yeah.
again, it's again, a double-edged sword in some way.
So, okay, we need to figure out going forward, if we can bring this back, or how we can raise taxes.
Right.
Yeah, I will find that out, but
There they go.
Back to the cap, yes.
Back to the cap.
Just as a fail-safe in case something happens.
And it's just good for us to know anyways, as we're moving forward. Any other questions or comments, Tim? You haven't really got much to say.
No, but I'm favor of the 1.25 rollback.
Yeah. All right. Eric?
Yeah, pretty much all my questions I've gotten answered through the discussion that we've had here tonight, so.
Okay.
Yeah, good discussion. Had a resident reach out to me. I don't think I can look them in the face and raise them $100.
I mean, this really, I think, puts us onto a path to success. It's just a little bit longer of a runway than getting 250,000 to 100 and,
We're still getting, we're still getting something,
yeah.
and the library
Mhm.
should be getting something.
And
We're counting on you.
I think by doing this, and I think I said it before, but by rolling that back, I think that gives them propulsion to get that vote passed.
Yeah. Get her done.
We hope so.
Get her done.
That's the big selling.
My concern is 10 years goes awful quick in that though, and what is it? Like the night safe after that, because it does go quick.
Well, hopefully with more
Increased tax
programming,
values.
with more programming, you'll win more customers.
Well, rebuilding our savings and all kinds of things.
So are you gonna give us sort of an option list here, and, or, you know, I mean, again, we don't make a decision tonight, but again, numbers are vital here, so.
Yeah.
What is it if we break even, what is it if we do rollback, what is it if we? That's the kind of stuff that I want to see.
And I almost like a deer
Yeah.
in the headlight.
Is this what we?
yeah, I think that's.
You already did it?
Yeah, that's what, so that's what you have in that sheet there. If you, like, I did the, oh gosh, my screen just went all big. There's the revenue impact, so that's by each amount. So the 1.25 would be a reduction of 129,000. So, I mean, are you wanting me to do the math, Mike, on the agenda, like at their current appropriation, what we would be up
Yeah,
overall?
that would be great, that would help.
Okay, so that was gonna be my next question. Are you guys wanting this? Can I put this on the agenda for the 28th meeting? Because
I would.
we need to know for our,
Does that work for you guys?
Sooner or better.
We've met our deadline for the election, so it's really just about marketing at this point, so.
Okay.
correct.
So,
But we need to know for
what's
budget.
she gonna be?
We need to get that amended for our truth and taxation notice. They wanna do that, correct?
Everybody go on this sheet, everyone follow me.
Cause
No, I'm not changing everything on this sheet. But
this year's already published. We're getting ready to do the truth and taxation for 25. So it could change, cause we prepay.
technically, the taxes that I get collected in 2020, this summer, I'm gonna fund this budget year.
Correct. Our notice though is for next year because we did our notice last year for what we collect this July, right? And we're getting ready to do our notice now for next tax year. So we need to know right away for our notice, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And they probably would like to know for marketing and things like that. So the 28th is already, because I've actually already sent the notice, public notice, so I'm gonna have to change that.
If we do this, I don't think, I mean, obviously they can take it and market it, but I think something needs to come collectively from the council.
Yes.
That we are doing this for the residents to help support the library.
Yes.
I
Yes,
think,
I will agree with that.
Pretty critical.
yeah, whether we take out an ad.
That's it. And go.
No, I'm just saying, I don't think we can leave it all on them, because I think it needs to come from us too. I think the people need to see that we're trying to help
That's what I
them.
was thinking too, is that maybe we don't change our max, but we change what we're collecting.
Correct,
Yeah,
that allows us to collect it if need be. But potentially, much like, you know, I've had these questions with Brandon in the years past, you know, well, why are we not collecting the full amount for the bridge bond, we approved 0.5% or 0.5 or whatever. But we didn't need to collect that because we can only be this much above what our bond payment is. So say truth in taxation is, we say we're gonna go for the max that we currently are, but we don't have to collect that. Again, I'm not trying to fool anybody or trick anybody, but at least it allows us to collect it if need be. But we're saying we're not going to, and the intent is not to.
Yes,
Hey, we go with 14 3/4 or whatever we're at. Right, but that allows us to not change, that allows us to collect it if need be. But then again, we may need to make it crystal clear that they're gonna say, because we're not gonna collect as much as we need to. That changes I guess the question of, can it go back up? Right?
yes.
What's your question?
I'm afraid that I'm following you. That's good.
So is this contingent, the decrease contingent on if there passes, or is it in general?
Okay, you cannot make a contingent motion, I do know this, to decrease. You can make a motion to decrease,
Come on
and then
now.
if it were to fail, you could come back and make a motion to move it back up. But it cannot be a contingent motion.
Oh, okay.
So to answer your question, yes, it is contingent. It will be in the motion, but it's not.
It's in the same year.
The taxes go out to that fish, this is why I'm confused, if it
We've
goes up,
already published our notice for this year's tax bills. We cannot change this year's tax bills. We're looking ahead. So this year's would not change. What we're collecting starting in July is the same. This is for July of next year because we only collect once.
Yeah. Okay. When would you project to purchase the library, the building?
That was made as a passing discussion at a council meeting. We have not really discussed that because it hasn't really been a formalized offer. We know that the first time that we would get any levied funds would be February. And then we have our 90-day transition period to get the employees off of the village payroll and all of that. So I would suggest discussions for that would probably not really be feasible until next summer at least. That way we can get situated and see what we're really looking like.
So in the meantime, we're gonna re-roof it, correct?
Yeah, we've
already allocated that money.
It's out to bid current.
You got it out to bid, okay. That's all I asked.
Which that's been years coming. I don't know how many years it's been on the budget to do, so. One more parting gift, how about that? Any other questions or comments? No, great discussion tonight.
Very good discussion.
Hopefully we're all in
Thank you
agreements.
for
Thank you
patience.
for clarifying everything. Thank you for attending. Again, keep us informed as to what we can do to help. I like Jerry's idea of a statement. I'll assign that to you, Jerry. How about that?
I'll work with Daniel on there.
All right.
Go, come on.
Nothing else?
I can do it.
Meeting adjourned, is that okay? All right, thank you, everyone. Oh, we're back on Tuesday.